Okay, so can everybody hear me? If you can, just make sure. All right, so got a test course created here. Generally, when you start out with your course, whether you've copied it over from another semester or if you did a course copy from Angel, what I generally recommend is start out with this little button up here in the upper right hand corner. We can enter a student preview. This is going to allow us to create, I guess, a test user within our course here. So once you enter that, you just want to go ahead and click exit, and then keep the preview user and all data. So by keeping that, it will create that test student within the course. So now once we've created that, we'll go into the full grade center here. And of course, here is our test student. Currently, I'm logged in as Richard, so it's going to just show Richard to board preview user. I've already got some grades set up for this user. A lot of the information here, I have a lot of it set up already, just to help the flow of the presentation here. So first, we're going to start out. Once you have created your course, or rather copied it, you'll have your grade center listed here. We want to make sure we go through and clean up the grade center. What that can mean is just removing duplicate columns, checking for duplicate columns, and so forth. So we're just going to go through here from the beginning and just scroll right. Okay. All right. So what I see here is we have a quiz 2 listed here, but we also have a quiz 2 listed here. So we have two quiz 2s here. There's no need for that. So what we'll first want to do is check to see which one is linked to the course content. Basically what that means is if we go into course content, there's going to be a quiz 2 listed there. That means it's linked. In other words, it was created through the course content, automatically created this column right here. When you drop down this little chevron here, you're going to see all of the options listed for this column. There was no remove button or delete button down here, so we'll check the other one. And it looks like there is a delete option. Generally, if there is a delete option, that means that column is not linked to any specific course content. In other words, we can go ahead and remove that column. Okay, so once we've removed that duplicate column, just kind of go through here, and you might see that your grade center, the columns are maybe in an order that you don't like. We'll get to that a little later. But now that we've got our duplicate columns removed, we'll just go into managing our course here and see exactly how we want to set it up. So we'll start with the Manage tab. You've got grading periods, schemas, color codes, all the way down here. So we're going to start out with the first option. We're going to go option by option here. We're going to start with grading periods. So grading period here, go in here, you can create your grading period. If you're not familiar with grading period, it's just basically allows you to associate a certain span of time with columns that already have that due date within that range of time. So in other words, I'm just going to go ahead and title this grade period 1. I'm going to set it as a range, assuming our course starts today. Put the start date as today and the end date from, say, 2 weeks from now. So in a situation where you have, as an example, an 8-week course, but you want to grade 2 weeks at a time, maybe in modules or sections. I know a lot of instructors set up their course content within sections or modules. So let's say each module is 2 weeks. So we've got from today till the 16th. Now, if you have your columns already set up with due dates, then you can associate this grading period with columns that have a due date within this range. automatically associate with this grading period. So we're going to do that. We're going to press submit. And now we have our grading period number 1. Go back to the grade center. Quick way to get back to the grade center up here in the corner. Click the trail, breadcrumb trail, I guess they call it. Click on grade center there. We go back to our full grade center. We'll touch base a little bit more on grading periods as we go throughout this list here. A lot of things here will be discussed later when we get to column organization. So for now, we've created our grading period. So next we just want to check on our schemas. And grading schemas are just a way to basically set up how a percentage will convert to a letter, or how a letter will convert to a percentage when manually typed in or just typed in at all, automatically graded, however it might be. So this, and Eddie or Julie, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I'm assuming since this course was created, this was just an automatic schema that was set up. Is this the schema that you guys generally use? Like, is this mandatory or?
I set up the what is it? The leather grade schema, the Cowley one. I set that up as a system administrator, and so it shows up as one of the choices, but they can still set up their own schema if they want.
Okay, all right, perfect. So assuming you just want to go through and use this particular schema, you've got your grades set up here. Anything between a 100% and 89.5 will convert to an A. If you manually enter an A for a student, that will convert as a 94.75. As we go down here, you can see what the rest of them convert as and what the percentages convert to letters as. So we've got this schema set up here. For now, we'll just use this. And you might see this text one here. We'll cover that a little bit later. So now that we've got our schema, we'll move on down to our color codes. And this is something you don't really see a lot of instructors use, or at least I don't. It's kind of rare to see. But color codes can be useful, especially with statuses. If you were to use a color code, the way it would work is you would first go in and you would enable the color codes within your grade center. And then you can see here you've got grading status. Statuses would include in progress, needs grading, and exempt. So at that point, if you were to change this color and then you were to submit your changes, if someone had submitted an assignment and it was in the needs grading status, the cell for that user would become red. It's really helpful if you just want to scroll through your grade center really quickly and see what needs grading or what might be in progress or so forth. So those are your statuses. Again, you can change the colors of those. Moving on to grade ranges. This is a way to set percentages. Say 100% would equal this particular color, this cayenne color, I guess you could say. And you can also change the text for that particular cell. So these are what the cells would look like here as we go down through here. And these percentages here make this color when the grade is entered. So assuming we enter a 95, it's going to become this dark violet color here. So going on down, you can set those up. If you don't like those, you can just remove them. If you only want to use the statuses, you can just remove these, just like so. And if you ever want to add them again, you can just click add. You've got your options here, which should be pretty self-explanatory on those. So we're going to go ahead and submit this. I'll have to delete this first. Okay, so we'll submit these changes. Now when we come into our grade center here, we see this one here is black. That's an exempt grade. and nothing else here is in needs grading or in progress at the time. So we don't have any other color codes at this time. But that's how, like I said, those are not something you see often, but they can be very useful. So we'll move on to categories. And categories, the preset categories when you enter into your course are assignment, blog, discussion, journal, self and peer, survey, and test. This quiz one here, if it has a checkbox beside it, that just means that it's something that's been manually created by you or another instructor. So this one here is quiz. When you look at your category, it shows you columns, which basically means these are the columns from your grade center that are associated with this category. So in discussions, we have discussions 1 through 4. And in test, we have our quizzes and exams and our sample test here, as well as our final. Now, generally, a lot of instructors believe that you can just go into your categories from here and change the columns that are associated with them. But unfortunately, that's not the case. The only thing that you can change here is the name of your category and if you want to add a description. So we'll be touching on the categories when we get to column organization as well. So that's how you set up your categories. I set up the quiz one here because a lot of instructors like to separate their quizzes from their exams. So that's just one that I've preset before we enter the course here. So click OK and we'll go back to the full grade center. We'll go back to manage. You should see your smart views here. A lot of instructors are not familiar with what a smart view consists of or really what the purpose of it would be. It's actually a really handy tool. By default, I believe assignments and tests are your two smart views. You can tell here that these are the two that are favorited. And if you look over in your grade center in your course menu under the control panel, you should see assignments and tests listed here. If we were to change this, say for instance we wanted to see discussions and tests, we would just press this little star to add it as a favorite, make sure it's green, then press OK. When the page refreshes, we'll see now we have discussion boards. So you might be wondering what this is technically used for. It's just a better view of your grade center. So say we go into discussion boards, it's only going to show our discussion columns. So it might be an easier way to grade certain categories. Okay, so we'll jump right into the column organization here. Like I said, this is where we're going to be managing a lot of the content within the grade center. You can see here, you've got your show hide, your change category, and your change grading period. Now, since we set up our grading period and we chose the date ranges here, it automatically associated these columns with this grading period. And that was just simply because the due date for each of these columns was within that range. So again, that's what the little check mark on associate does. So we'll go back to the grading period here so you can see that again. Okay, so again, we have our date ranges and then associate this grading period with all columns that have a due date within this range. So back to the column organization here, we can see we've got the grading period, and then we've got the rest of our columns listed here. And then we've got our a few columns listed up here, which include the user's first and last name. If you want to change, maybe later on in the course you decide that grading period 1, you've decided to move like assignment 2 out of that grading period. You can just drag it down here, move it out of the grading period like that. Or if you want to change multiple ones out, you want to move them from the grading period, you can check the boxes here and change it to this view here. So it automatically moves it back down here. Okay, so another thing that we're going to be looking at again was um, the organization of your grade center. Let's say, for instance, we're looking through here. You've got exam 1, quiz 1, assignment 1. All these are at the end of your grade center. Maybe you want them a little closer to the top so that you can see them as soon as you enter into the grade center. So again, we just want to move those, just drag them up there, and we can pretty much just organize it the way we see fit. So whether that be by order of the assignments or due dates or however you would like to do that, we can move them here like that. And once you've moved them, you want to make sure that you press submit. Any changes that you make within column organization, you want to make sure you press submit. Once you submit those changes, you can see how discussion was moved to the beginning. Let's go back to the full grade center though. Yeah, here we go. Discussion's back to the beginning. Okay, so you might be wondering why these two columns are gray while the rest of them are white. It's not just because those are the first and last names of the students. If you go back to column organization here, you can see that these two columns are frozen. So at any point in time, if you say, for instance, want to see your total column, no matter where you scroll in the grade center, you can move that total column up there and it'll freeze that. So if we submit that change, we go back to our full grade center, no matter where we scroll in the grade center here, this total column will stay right here. So another thing that is really handy to know when you're dealing with your categories, like we said earlier, a lot of instructors like to separate quizzes from the test category and put them in their own category. So let's assume that you want to change these to quiz. Once you create the quiz category within the manage categories option, you're going to go to your column organization, you're going to check those boxes, and then you would move them or change the category to, choose quiz. And of course it'll show there their quizzes now. And we can submit that change. Okay, so when we go over, we locate one of our quizzes. If you can see there in the grade information bar right above the dark gray, it should say points possible 0, and then the category is quiz. So, okay, so while we're looking through the column organization here, sometimes if you go into your column organization of your course, you might see some light gray columns here. These are columns that have just been hidden, and that's hidden from your view. If at any point you are in your grade center and you're looking for a particular column but you can't find it, say for instance, we're looking for quiz 1 here. So we scroll through our grade center here. Okay, we see quiz 1 listed here. So it might be a duplicate column. So we want to go to column organization and double check that as well. So we do, we have a duplicate column. Here's quiz 1, and here's another quiz 1. So if that's the case, especially because when you're checking your total column within the grade center and you see above the total there, when you hover over it, how it says points possible up to 424. If you calculated that and received a different number, maybe a lower number when you added each of the columns up to yourself, it was a number lower than 424, you would want to go into your column organization and see if you have a hidden column that actually has points assigned to it. So in this case we do. We have the quiz 1 here. We also have quiz 1 here, and it does have a points possible of 30. So in that situation, you would just want to show the selected column. So you just check the box and show selected columns, and then submit those changes. We'll go back to the full grade center here and locate that quiz. Okay, so quiz 1 here. So this was, like I said, 424. If we go into this column, if we don't want this column, like if we don't want the points to calculate into our total, we can go into the column information here and include this in Grade Center calculations. We'll select no on that. Submit that change. And then our total column would show 394. At that point, if you no longer wanted that column, you could either hide it from yourself, or you could remove it if it's not linked. Unfortunately, this column is linked, so we'd want to, again, double check to make sure our other quiz 1, if it was linked or not, and it's not. So see, we've got another duplicate column here. So that would always be a good idea when you're going into your course to check column organization and make sure you don't have any hidden columns. Okay, so there's a few, I think a few more things that we might need to go over with the show hide. You can actually hide columns from the full grade center view here, assuming you just go in, hide from instructor view. That would automatically push it to the column organization and make it hidden. Or if you just wanted to hide it from your students, you can hide it right here. So hide from students. It shows here, column not visible to users. It's still visible to you as an instructor, but your students won't have access to see that. You can unhide it by just clicking that again. For now, we're just gonna hide it from instructor view. So that's most of column organization. Like I said, you've got your grading periods, you've got your categories listed here. You can change your category, change your grading period, show hide columns. You can rearrange your columns. And this is where this is where most of the organization of your grade center is going to come from. So within Manage, we have one last item that we'll be going over, and that's the row visibility. Row visibility, it just shows every single student's row within your course. Assuming you had a student that maybe dropped the course, their name just shows a little disabled mark. They're no longer actually active in the course. You just want to hide them from the view. You can check their little box there, click hide rows. And if we submit that change, it'll refresh the grade center and no longer show that student in the view. Again, that's the row visibility. Do you guys have any questions so far? Anything about what we've went over so far?
On that row visibility and hiding students, if a student has dropped, if we put them in hidden, do they still have access to the course?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, if they've dropped the course and, I mean, if they don't have access to it that way, and they might just still appear there, but they've not been removed from the course, or rather, I guess a better example would be a disabled mark, like the little non-smoking symbol. Sometimes you might see that appear next to someone's name. Generally means they're disabled. So, I mean, it's just a preference. It's not really something I see used often. But again, it's just something that if you did want to hide a user, like especially your preview user, that might have been a better example. You've got your test student here, but you don't want to see it at that time. You just want to hide it. You check that, press hide, and submit your changes.
Because I had a student email me the other day and indicate that they had dropped the class, but yet the student was still able to access my course in Blackboard. So I didn't know if that was the Cowley side of things that didn't get the student dropped, because I had gone in when I got the notice that the student had dropped the course. I then hid the student, but then the student was claiming that they still had access.
Right. Yeah.
Can I jump in?
Yeah. Absolutely.
This is Julie. You'll need to go to your course management area and your users, and then you'll see the roster of all the students, and you'll edit the student, and I believe it is disabled for this course, and then they can't get into it.
Okay.
Yeah, Josh, if you want to go down to users, yeah, users and groups, users, and then edit their name, the chevron. I'm pointing at the screen. Go back.
And then disable there. Okay.
Change availability in the class. Yeah.
Yeah, right here. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
And
so we
then-
don't have that set up yet, that our systems are talking to each other, that if a student is dropped, that this automatically happens. So we as instructors need to go in and do that.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Perfect.
I'll put
Thank you, dear.
We are actually working with ESP Genzabar to figure out the exact what's the word I'm looking for, Julie? It's the algorithm to push that to where it does deny access to the students, whether the student has been dropped, withdrawn, etc. All of those. So we are working on that. That is in the future.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so I mean, aside from row visibility, or were there any other questions? Anything anybody was? I know in the Grade Center, there's a lot of, and it might seem a little jumpy, but I mean, it's really hard to set a direct line and follow that, just simply because there's so much jumping around within the Grade Center. You go from grading periods to column organization, and then refresh back to your full Grade Center. So I mean, it can get a little confusing. I just want to make sure that there's no questions at this time, or if there are, just let me know. Okay, so moving on, we've got, aside from our manage, which we've covered everything in there, we've got our create column and our create calculated column. So within create column, this is something that you're generally only going to use if maybe you're teaching a hybrid course, like half online, half on campus. And you've assigned something in the class on campus, but you want to put the grade in within Blackboard. So at that time, you could go in here. You could create your grade column. So let's assume it's like a paper assignment, and then however many points it was worth, assuming it's 100. And then if you want to assign it to a category, you can also do that here. You've got your primary displays. You could use the Cowley letter grade schema that we've set up, or score, which is just total points, your percentage, and then we have your complete, incomplete, which would basically just show a check mark regardless of what. Let's assume we'll cover that in a second, actually. Then you've got your text, and then we've got another schema that I've set up, which we'll cover in a moment as well. This is your primary display. This is what's going to appear to you and the student. If you set a secondary display, that's only going to appear to you. So, of course, you've got your associated rubrics as well, if you wanted to add a rubric, but generally, that would be something that you might be grading within the course. And you can set a due date on that. And also, if you want to include it in Grade Center calculations, whether or not you want it to be shown to the students, and whether or not you want to show the statistics of the column. So basically, the statistics of the column would be just the average for that particular column amongst all of the students in the course. And that would be shown to the student within My Grades. That's, again, that's create column. I generally see that used in hybrid courses a lot. So that would be a good example of how to use a create column. We've got our calculated columns. I've already created a few of them here. We've got our complete, incomplete. That's the specific view of a display as well as text. But our calculated columns, we've got average, we've got minimum, maximum here. And then we have a total column, which again is here. And a weighted column, which I believe is here. So we'll start out with our average column first. We'll just kind of run through that so you can get an idea of how the average column works and what it could be used for. So an average column generally, you would use that for selecting a certain number of columns or categories here. For instance, in this one, I've selected quiz 1, exam 1, and discussion 1. Now, each of these columns have different point values. I believe this quiz 1 was worth 100 points. Exam 1 and discussion 1, I put at 10 points for a total of 120 points. And what it's going to do is average that. And I believe the average would be 40. And then once we go back to the grade center here, it'll kind of tell you up at the top there, it says points possible up to 40. And then the averages of each student amongst those 3 assignments. So exam 1, 10 out of 10 for Richard DeBoard here. And I think I may have hidden the other quiz 1 that we had actually included in the average here. But it was 100, I believe. I'll go ahead and make that available real quick so we can get a good grasp of what's going on. Sorry about that. Okay, yeah, here we go. Quiz 1, Richard got a 75. Exam 1, he got 10 out of 10. And discussion 1, if we can locate it here, 9 out of 10. Again, that just takes those, adds them up, and averages them out. That's 35 is the average for Richard here. And that's out of, again, 40. That could be used if you want to average up, say, discussions, just like a set of columns or maybe specific categories, and you can get an average for that. Next to average, we have the minimum maximum column. And basically what this one's a little bit more complex. The minimum maximum column is something I don't think I've ever actually seen used by an instructor. But it's kind of similar to the average column. You can go in and select the columns that you want to calculate or pull from rather, or the categories. In this scenario, I've set it up to where it's going to be pulling from discussion columns. So discussion 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the calculation type is maximum. So what it's actually doing is it's searching through all of these discussions to find which one or what the maximum points achieved per student would have been, if that kind of makes sense. Again, it's a little bit more confusing than the average column, but I'll kind of go through that here. If we're looking at the full grade center and we're looking at the maximum minimum column, let's see here. So Richard got 9. And unfortunately, the only way to find out where that 9 came from is if you know in advance which columns you've associated with your minimum maximum. So again, we've associated discussion 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to see where this 9 is pulling from. So we're just going to scroll through here and locate each discussion. So again, this one's 8, this one's 8, and this one's 9. So it's going to be pulling from this one and this one. Those are the maximum points achieved that Richard got out of discussions, out of those 4 discussions. And again, that just goes by student, on down by student. So the minimum maximum column, again, like I said, it's not going to be something you see used often, or really, again, like I said, I've never really actually seen someone use that particular column. But if there is a situation that arises, that's how it works. Next, we have the total column. By default, there is already a total column and a weighted total column within the course when it's created or copied. And one of them might have a little green check mark on it. And if you ever wonder what that green check mark is, it's just an external grade. So for institutions where you submit your grades to like the registrar as an example, and you submit those externally through Blackboard, you would set the external grade to whichever column you're actually submitting the grades for. And that option can be found just by dropping down the chevron set external grade. No matter what, one of the columns in the Grade Center will have to have this icon. There's no way to remove that icon. If once you've actually got your total column and weighted column here, again, you can create multiple total columns if you want to total, say, just the total of your discussions or your exams or your quizzes, so forth. But there is one already listed here, and it'll tell you how many points possible there are in the course, and it might vary by student, but points possible currently is 394. So if we're going to be creating, assuming we're going to create another total column, we would go up here and go to total column. Let me give it a name. And choose a display for it. However we want to display that, we'd make it go into percentage. And then we're going to select columns. But in this scenario, I'm just going to select a category. It's a lot easier than going through and selecting discussions individually. And you might see calculate as running total. A lot of instructors have questions on what this really means. There's a brief little description here, but to sum it up, it basically means if you choose yes, and you're in the Grade Center and you see a student cell that has 2 dashes or just a dash, no grade at all, it's not going to calculate that into the grade, or rather it's not going to affect their grade. If you choose no, it's going to calculate that cell without a grade. It's going to make it a 0 and put that into the calculations. So once we submit this change here, any new column that you create within the Grade Center is automatically going to go to the end. So we've got our discussions total here. We moved it to percentage so that we can see for each student what the overall score or percentage would be for those discussions 1 through 4. Next, we have the weighted column. A lot of questions arise about the weighted column and how it works. We've already got one. I'm just going to go ahead and create another one just so we can get an idea of how that works. So your weighted column generally is in the form of a letter grade, or at least I see it in a letter grade and a secondary percentage. The easiest way to explain what a weighted grade is just if you're taking multiple columns or categories in your course and you're weighting them individually. The total weight percent you would want to add up to 100. For this one, we're just going to add in a few categories here. Assignment, and our tests, discussions, and our quizzes. That's what we're going to be weighting today. So assuming you have the test category here, and you want to weight that a little bit more heavy than you do some of your other categories. So you want the overall test grades to affect the student's grade more so than the discussions or the quizzes or the assignments. So what you're going to want to do here is figure out exactly what percentages you want them to weight as, and then type that percentage in here. So for today's example, we're just going to use 40%. So 40% of the test will be the overall grade. Or I'm sorry, 40% of the overall grade will be due to the test grades. Discussions, let's say 15. And our quizzes, let's make those 20. Oops, I don't know what just happened there. Didn't mean to do that. Sorry about that. Okay, so we had our test at 40, discussions at 15, quizzes at, let's move that to 25. And you can always see your total weight of what you've got it set to currently down here. So we know 20% of it, we'll just move that to assignments. Okay, so now that we've got it weighted, got tests at 40, quizzes 25, assignments at 20, and discussions at 15 for a total weight percentage of 100. And we submit those changes, and it shows our grades here. So since we can't see this next to our total column here, I'm just going to go to our column organization. I'm going to arrange some columns for us so we can see that a little bit more closely.
Hey, Josh.
Yeah.
If you might mention that if the drag and drop doesn't work for them, because I know I've had problems with it before, that they can put on the manual, the little arrows over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one, the reorder columns, and do it that way.
Yeah, you can choose a column here and just move it up that way, just by clicking this arrow or clicking the down arrow here, and then apply the changes like that. Yeah, again, like Julie said, the moving them around like that, dragging and dropping them, can be a little bit frustrating at times because it might not work just the way you want it to. So now that we've got the total column and weighted column organized here, I'm just going to submit these changes, and we can see them side by side. I'm going to change the total column to letter and percentage as well. So letter grade and percentage. So we can see how it affects. So you can see here, the grades differ greatly. Again, not all of these columns actually have grades in them. Some of them just have random grades here and there. But for the most part, again, the weighted total column is not always going to be the same as your total column, just simply because you'll have them weighted differently. So are there any questions about the weighted column? I know there's generally a lot of information that, or rather questions that instructors have over that. So are there any questions on the weighted or the total or any of the calculated columns that we've went over so far?
Looking good in the chat so far.
Okay, great. Okay, so aside from our calculated columns there, let's see. There's a few like miscellaneous things that I kind of wanted to go through with the Grade Center. When you remove a like a duplicate column, or rather say you just want to, let's see, let me find an exam here. Let's say we want to remove exam 3. For some reason, we just decided that we didn't want to use exam 3 this semester, so we want to remove it altogether. We don't want to hide it, we just want to remove it altogether, but there's no remove option. So again, like I said, when there's no remove option, that means it's linked to somewhere, to an option or item within the course content. So if you ever want to know how to remove that, you can go into the course content here, and you want to go through and locate where your item is, and then from there you can click delete. Now it's going to delete this particular link, but with exams it's not actually going to delete the actual test pool or anything like that, which I'll show you that in just a second. So when you do click delete, if you want to remove it from the Grade Center, it would allow you to delete the content item, which is in the course content, the Grade Center column, all the grades, and all the attempts. If we click remove, it'll no longer be listed in our content, nor will it be listed in our Grade Center. So if you ever want to later on, maybe if you copy this course next semester, you want to use that quiz or that exam again, and it's not listed, you can go here to locate it. Like I said, it's not going to delete the actual exam, it's just not deployed. So and another thing we might want to cover is just when you are in your course content, if you create a test, let's do exam 3 here. When we do create it, it's going to automatically create a column in the Grade Center. So we've got our test here, which you could go through that, the options, and choose whatever you want to choose there. When we create it in the course content here, if we want to move it or wherever we want to put it, and then we go back to our Grade Center, and at the very end, we'll see exam 3. It's linked. So there's no, I know I've seen a lot of courses in the past where instructors will go through and they'll post a link to an assignment or something, and then also go into the Grade Center and create a column. So when you create an assignment, a test, discussion board, wiki, whatever it might be, as long as you put a grade on it, that it will be graded, then it should automatically create a column for you in the Grade Center that's linked directly to that assignment. So one last thing I kind of wanted to go over, for any of you guys who use Mac, Apple computers, sometimes you might go into the Grade Center and you might not see this little scroll icon here. It's actually not an issue with Blackboard or the Grade Center or really any of that. It's actually a Mac setting. I know I've seen that a lot recently where instructors go in, they're using a Mac, and they don't have this scroll bar. Within the settings or the preferences of your Mac, the general settings, there's a scroll bar option that you have to click always show scroll bars. Once you choose that option, the scroll bar will appear. It's just one little miscellaneous thing I wanted to go over, because it really seems to, it only really seems to be a problem in the Grade Center. So unless, Richard, you have anything else that you can think of, that's pretty much all I had today, unless anybody has any questions.
I think we can, if you'd like to, we can open up the floor and you can unmute if you'd like to ask questions for Josh or Richard or any of the team.
Sure.
You were discussing the scroll bar at the bottom. Yeah. Sometimes I will go in and on the left or right end of that scroll bar will be an arrow option so that you can click on the arrow and it will move the scroll bar in increments. Sometimes those arrows show and sometimes they don't. Is that?
That would, are you on a PC or a Mac?
PC.
If it's on a PC, that could simply be a setting within the browser, or it
Okay.
could just be the browser altogether. Have you tried it within a different browser when that happens?
Yeah, well, I haven't paid attention. I'll look at that though. I haven't really paid attention as to if it's showing up in one browser versus the other. So I'll look at that
Okay.
and see,
Yeah, if the
because I
arrows,
flip back and forth between browsers.
okay, if the arrows don't appear, you can still just click anywhere on this line here if you want to move.
Right.
So just in case the arrows, like for example, in mine, you can see the arrows don't appear, but I can still
Yeah.
click around there. So I
Okay.
guess,
Yeah, I'll try the two different browsers
yeah.
and see if that works.
If I'm not mistaken, I'll jump in real quick. If I'm not mistaken, it's Firefox will give you the option with the little arrow, so you can move it in increments. And Chrome is like what he's showing here, where you don't have that. So I think it's the difference between Firefox and Chrome.
Okay. I usually go between Explorer and Chrome. But again, like I said, I hadn't really paid attention
Yeah, I think
as to
Explorer would be the same.
Okay. So I'll do that. Okay, perfect.
No Explorer. Death to Explorer.
Well, I use it when I have gradebook open, because we have to transfer grades from Blackboard. So when I'm in Blackboard, I'm in Chrome, but then when I'm in our gradebook, for faculty access, then I'm in Explorer, and that way I've got the two windows open and yeah.
Oh,
All these little backup plans that we have to do.
yeah. It's fun.
Are there any other questions?
I have one that I'm not sure how related it is to the gradebook, though, kind of indirectly, I guess. I usually use total points for my gradebook, but I've noticed that in Blackboard, when I create a quiz, I want my quizzes to be just worth 10 points, but sometimes I might have 25 questions on my quizzes. So is there a way to get it to manually calculate the value of each question that's asked so that ultimately it only comes up to 10 points? Or do you have to use a weighted column option for that?
I've actually seen issues like that before. From last I remembered, which this could have been previous versions of Blackboard, but it was calculated manually. I'm not sure. I haven't actually looked into that recently to see if that's changed. Richard,
Okay.
do you know?
Yeah, you're just wanting to, like, say you have 25 questions, but you want the entire test to be worth 10 points.
Correct.
Yeah, you have to manually calculate that out. Like whenever you can do the update and regrade, but whatever
Right.
point value you put in, you're putting in per question.
Okay.
There's not really an option to give it.
Okay, because I know in Angel that was an option that you would just tell it total points for the quiz, and then it would figure those for you. So, okay, so manual on that one. All right, perfect.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I don't
You
have.
guys are shy.
Josh just covered everything and did a great job.
Yeah, just really quickly, Josh, can you? Oh, is he still there?
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, could you just really quickly show me where you accessed to make the total column, whichever one I choose, to have the green check mark to indicate the external grade?
Yeah. You would just, whichever column you want to switch it to. Let's say you want to switch it from total to weighted. Drop this menu down and set as external.
It's external. Okay, set as external. That's what I missed. Okay, perfect.
Just a few more things before I let you guys go. Maybe just a few things I forgot to cover. If you're ever using the color codes at any point, if you decide, let's see here. Okay, so here's one of our color codes for an exempt grade. At any point, if you want to hide that, this little button right here will hide it and also show it. So that's just a little quick. So if you ever do want to set them up in a case you might want to turn them on at any point, like leave them off generally, but then turn them on real quick just to see what needs grading or something. That's a good button to use. And also the work offline if you ever need to download the Grade Center to just, I mean, I'm not sure if you ever do that or not, but if you do, you want to input some grades manually or just look over the Grade Center outside of Blackboard, you can download it. You can choose that by column, grade period, or just full Grade Center. On the options, you wouldn't really want to mess with any of those options, and then you just download it to your computer. When you press submit and you click download, generally it goes into Excel.
I believe that that's what we're doing when we're submitting our grade books to the registrar at the end of the semester, is we're using that particular function, the work offline and then the download to an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay. And again, it looks like mine didn't work, but again, that's another way you can print the Grade Center. If you ever want to print something out, you can do it from Excel, or you can go into your reports, which this is something that Richard will be covering a little bit more on, but you can create a report and, give it a name, and include whatever options you want to include. And if you want to select users or do all users, and what columns you want to include. When you actually go through and submit it, actually we're not going to do that, we'll just preview it.
And I do believe the instructions on how to print out your gradebook is located in the Instructor Resources course.
Perfect, yeah. I think this, where it says here, they can be used or printed using the browser's print button. I think that option might be broken. It actually only shows one sheet and it won't let you scroll. It only shows the sheet that you're currently viewing. But I believe that's something that they're going to be resolving, and I believe future, I think the April release, is that right, Richard?
Yeah, the April 15 release.
Okay, yeah.
Is this going to fix that?
So, in the meantime.
But for now, if you can copy and paste that into like Word, and it really holds format pretty good. If you wanted to copy and paste it into Word and print from Word.
Exactly. So if you ever actually do that, you just want to make sure you switch the page orientation within Word to horizontal instead of vertical, because it will cut off some of this information. But that's your little workaround for now.
And Josh, Paula had one more question. She says, in the gradebook, we manually enter a 0 for a non-completed item. However, when a student completes it and we regrade it, the new grade does not show in the gradebook. Is there a way to better manage that? Also, does the color coding change with the new grade?
Let's see. So assuming, is this something that you said it was a 0 and then?
Right. I believe it's when a student doesn't submit an assignment and we go back and give them a 0 for that attempt. That way that the grading is accurate. If a student is allowed to go back and complete it,
as long as the due date hasn't passed or something like that.
Maybe there's the situations where the instructor allows them to go back and complete it.
Right, okay. So assuming they have a 0 and then we go back, or they go back and submit, is this something that, I just want to get a better idea if this is something that you're automatically submitting, or the student's automatically submitting and it automatically grades it, or?
I'm trying to get some more clarification from her. But I think what it is the student does not submit an assignment. The instructor gives the student a 0. The instructor allows the student to come back and redo the assignment. And that resubmission does not override that first, basically the zeroed out.
Okay, so as an example, we go into this column here. We go to the grade history, and it shows that the override was done here. And then when are you asking when they submit it? Will it
override the overridden?
Okay, okay. I honestly don't believe it will.
So do you remove the overridden 0 first?
You would want to remove basically what in a situation like that. Actually, that was something I probably should have covered as well. When you're in the full grade center and you have a student that has submitted something here, or maybe they attempted it and it shows need or attempt in progress or needs grading, but they've actually, like for an example, an exam. I know a lot of people have seen exams before that just say in progress, but the student is like, I can't go back in and access it to complete it. Somehow I got kicked out during the exam. Situation like that, you would go into the view grade details and look at the attempt and clear it. Or if you overrid it, or if you were overriding grades manually, you would want to go in and change that. So from the grade center, you basically click on it and delete it and then hit enter. And it'll tell you there you want to delete all attempts, which we'll do that on one that's manually here. There we go. And it'll take it back to no attempt. So to answer your question, yes, you would want to do that beforehand. If you were using something that was in progress, you would want to clear the attempt so the student wouldn't have access to attempt it again if that was something that was automatically submitted.
So it appears to me that if an instructor nulls out a grade or gives them a 0, and then the instructor later on allows the student to go back and complete the work, you must clear that 0 out before before the new grade comes back in, correct?
Right. As far as I know, yes. I mean, like I said, it would kind of work like an attempt. Say a student has one attempt on an assignment, they attempted it, but something happened during that attempt where they didn't actually get to finish it all, and it kicked them out, or whatever might happen. They close the browser. When they go back in, they can't access it. In order for them to access it again, we have to clear that attempt. It's kind of similar to that. Since the grade is already overridden with a 0, if you want them to be able to access it again, generally you would have to clear that 0 out so they would be able to submit that and actually the scores show up correctly.
Okay.
That'll also vary if it's on a actual quiz, like a gradable, auto-graded quiz, or if an assignment that you have to manually grade too.
Right,
If it's
exactly.
an auto-graded quiz, the new grade should pop up, and under edit column information, you'll have the option of choosing last graded attempt, which would be what they submitted last, which would override the 0. But if it's like an assignment, you would have to revert the 0, and then it should flag it in the needs grading status for you to manually grade.
Okay.
So it's just going to depend on whether it's a manually graded assignment or auto-graded test.
Okay.
You can also access your needs graded items down here in the Smart View as well. It's an automated Smart View. It'll show you, instead of showing you your full grade center, it'll actually just show you what needs grading.
This situation would be the same if the student doesn't make an attempt. So there's no attempt, the instructor zeroes it out, but then later allows the student to complete the attempt at a later time. That's essentially the same. You're going to have to null that grade for it to accept the late grade. Is that correct? Because if the student does not submit it within the time frame, the instructor zeroes it out, and the student then comes back and is allowed to retake it and submit it, it will not override the 0.
It depends on if you have, like if it's a test and it's an auto-graded test, if you have multiple attempts, if they have 2 attempts, the first attempt would be manually overridden as a 0. The second attempt, it's auto-graded, and say they've got 10 points on it. It would pull, or you could set it so under the scoring. Josh, if you'll go to one of those columns and then go to edit column information, you'll see where it says score attempts using. Scroll down a little. All right, right here, go up just a little. All right, there you go, score attempts using. And so the default's last graded attempt. So if you have multiple attempts on a test, even if you override the first attempt, the second attempt will pull the pull the the last graded or the highest or whatever you want it to pull from. So you've got your options there. But you do have to have multiple attempts on the test. If there's only one attempt on the test, then yeah, you would have to clear it out.
Okay, perfect.
If you had a 0, you could just take that attempt and clear it, and then it would take the second by default, right?
I'm sorry, there was a little static there. What was it again?
Oh, I just said that if you had 2 attempts and you had put a 0 in the one and they go back and retake it, you can just clear out the first attempt and then it would by default take the second one, or you could click on it and say use this one.
Yeah, if something, as far as I know, is if something has multiple attempts, when you go into like the, let's see if we've got one listed here anywhere.
View all attempts, maybe.
Well, we can go to view grade history. That'll work as well.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, not view grade history.
Oh.
1 second here. Yeah, view all. You're right. View all attempts. When you go in here, you can see the attempts, like how many number of attempts there were. I believe when we go in here, let's see.
I think you want to drill down more granularly for the one student rather than the column.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
I was looking for it and I was like, man, I'm drawing a blank. Where is this at? Okay,
It's
yeah, here
okay.
we go. We've got our grade history. It would show one of these students here has a multiple. I think it's this one maybe. Yeah, you've got multiple attempts here. So if you just like say, for example, the first one was a 0, we can click on that attempt, and you can see what what was going on. And then if you wanted to clear it, actually we could have cleared it from there, but you can view grade details and look at attempts and clear them here, whichever one you wanted to clear. So say we wanted to clear the first one, which was a 10, or we just wanted to clear the last one, just clear attempt, and now they have a second attempt there, or a third attempt, sorry. If we wanted to clear that one as well, you just click clear. So now out of a total of 3 attempts, they have 2 more that they can attempt now. And like I was saying, another way to view, if you want to view that, is by clicking on the attempt. If you want to know whether or not you can, if you want to clear it while you're looking at it, say you want to go through and see why it was they got whatever score they got, and see the question here, and then there's also your clear attempt button here. So that's another way to do it, and that's under test information when you actually go in to view that particular attempt.
In the chat, Pat says, I allow multiple attempts and accept the highest, but if I have manually added a 0 for non-submission, the 0 does not change. I'm just throwing that in.
Let me see if I can pull the chat here. I'll have to read that one. Why did it not pull up on my end?
Huh.
Not sure what. Still getting used to this thing. I'm not really sure how it works.
Yes, we threw a non-Blackboard tool at these guys, and they are adapting beautifully.
Oh, there it is. I got it. All right, so you allow multiple attempts and accept the highest. But I've manually added a 0 for non-submission. The 0 does not change. Let's see. So I'm not really sure I fully understand what you're saying. So you allow multiple attempts, like this one had, this exam one here has 3 attempts, and you've accepted the highest. So we'll go into our information here. And score attempts using the highest grade, right? Or we can do that within content under the exam. And oh man, now I gotta get back to it. Okay. So you said you manually added a 0 for non-submission. So assuming someone doesn't actually submit this, you're just automatically overriding like a 0 like this. Is that right?
Pat?
Okay. Okay, do you have any other questions? All right, no problem. No problem.
All right.
Yeah, if you have any questions in regards to that, like after our session or anything, I mean, you can use our appointment scheduler and schedule an appointment if there's anything that any of you are unsure of, anything that you might have questions on. I know we've got just about 3 more minutes here, so no problem at all.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. I really appreciate you delivering this session today. Again, everybody remember that we have the active scheduler, the amazing scheduler that you can schedule time with both Josh and Richard at your convenience, and they call you back. It's one-on-one. So if there's no more questions, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up this session. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and we look forward to seeing you hopefully on Friday for